is Power 102 Digital. The afternoon power drive is on Power 102 Digital. The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
Ain't no fooling with that. The future of talk is right here. And right here with me on the set is Fareed Ali. Good afternoon, Fareed, my brother. How are you? I need you to unmute your microphone. Stand by, folks. We're going to link up with Fareed in a little bit. Yeah. It's Wednesday. Soon to join us will be Richard Nori, as per usual. Fareed, you hearing me now, brother? Yes, I needed to. Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm now hearing you. Good. What's up? What's up? What's up?
I'm struggling to
I see you. I see you have two two spots on our meeting room, and I'm getting a sort of a feedback. So I don't know if you can get rid of one.
David, forgive me. I'm trying to sort volume out here.
Oh, okay. I'm hearing you now. I'm hearing you now. Stand by, folks. Fareed is sorting himself out where the audio is concerned. Let me say good afternoon to everyone.
I seem to be, you know.
Yeah, but you sort of distorted. I'm seeing two Fareed Ali's on my Zoom. Okay, we just checking and make sure everything's okay before we get
How's
started.
the volume there now? Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. You hearing me?
Right, I'm hearing you now. So it seems that we're on the same page.
All right, good. Okay.
Yeah, I was having some difficulty with one device, and what I did is I tried another.
Oh,
So hopefully,
well, whichever one you're using now, continue to use that one, and you can probably take the other
how's
one.
my
I'm seeing two of your of your
let me
yeah. So you can discard the one that you're not using or the one that you tried and give you problems. All right, good, good. Stay right there.
okay.
Good, that's good.
Okay. Yeah,
Oh, you're still kind of breaking up, pal. The audio,
I'm
the
still
audio.
picking up.
Yes, they're still breaking up.
Let me tune in. Okay, let me tune out. I'm going to tune out another device.
Okay, good, good.
20 minutes.
Yes, yes, no problem. Hold on, folks. We'll do this in a short while. Shortly. Just making sure everything is A-okay here, all right? So stand by. In the meantime, let me give you a little backup music here. And for the folks who have the belly to look at the cricket, you know, West Indies, they disappoint us so much. They're up against New Zealand in the first ODI. And the New Zealanders, they're batting. And the score is 115 for 4, 28.2 overs gone already. It's a 50 over game. West Indies disappoint me too much. Too much. So he's standing by for Fareed and Richard Nori to join us on today's edition of the After Work Line here at Power 102 Digital. In the meantime, last night we were plunged into darkness for quite a while after a landslip caused one of those high tension wire, what do you call it, a derrick? Yes. So we're top portion of it broke off. And you know that would have caused a short circuiting and all of that. But we got back the electrical supply in about an hour and a half after, or in 45 minutes, somewhere there. About close to 2 hours, we were out of electricity. And a lot of other folks were affected. Yeah. Now, this one was caused, according to TNTech, by a landslip in Rosilac. That's close to where I live, you know. And it affected those lighting towers, you know. If I should call it a tower. It's more like a derrick. So we're still standing by for you to join us. After Work Live, Power 102 Digital Wednesday. Good afternoon to the folks who are online, wherever you may be across the planet. Logged on to this A1 station of the nation. And so much things are happening these days. Crime. I don't understand what's happening, you know. I really don't. I have an idea of the cause. And please, people, let's not put a 100% blame on poverty, right? That's a condition you can try your best and lift yourself out of. Try really hard. There are lots and lots of things you can do to earn a dollar. Don't let anybody influence you into going the wrong way or taking up the wrong ideals towards life. You got a great future ahead if you're a young person. And there are lots and lots of opportunities out there that you can ponder on and utilize to get yourself ahead. I see Farid is back with us. Let's see if we can link up with him. And you know, yes, Farid is back with us. Farid, let me hear you. Are you there? Unmute your microphone. Nice. Okay, talk to me now. I'm still not hearing you, bro. Still not hearing you. I'm seeing your microphone on, the video's on, but I'm not hearing you at all. And I'm seeing you though. Is your level up? Stand by, folks. You know, these technical glitches can interfere. I'm seeing your microphone on, your video is on, I'm seeing you, but I'm not hearing you. Not hearing you at all. Stand by, folks, stand by, he's working on it. Yes, so my message to the youth, try your best. Connect with the Father. And he'll show you the way.
How's it there now?
Nice, this is it, man. Let's go.
Wow. I don't know, I'm trying to get used to technology from time to time.
Yeah.
I change devices, but I'm here.
Good. So,
how's everything going?
well, for now, quiet. I take things easy. I see a lot is happening in the public, you know. Crime seems to be running away.
Well, apart from crime, a few months ago we had a situation where there was a tree fell and then we had a power outage. I see now we have a mudslide.
Yeah. And that happened close to me, in Rosilac. And
You're saying Rosilak. I was in Maraval yesterday, and part of Maraval was in darkness.
yeah,
Then I made my way into Central, and part of Central was in darkness.
yeah.
So
I
it seemed like
the,
whatever mud split,
yeah, the
it
hookup of the grid. The hookup of the grid with TGU now in the Union Industrial Estate. That's where it is. That's our power generation unit, Trinidad Power Gen
uh
TGU. And before it was like power gen just off Rice Road there. So
yeah, yeah.
probably the link up that they're using now will affect certain areas, because I was hearing that it's about 1/3 of the country were without electricity for that period of time. So,
I don't know. I say we have so many things happening in this country,
I tell you.
and sometimes it feels like the forces of nature tends to gather against us.
I tell you, bro. Yeah. Because I mean, the thing about it, well, I had some work to do on my car yesterday, so it took me nearly all day to get it done. And then I went into the shower, and as soon as I came out of the shower, blackness. So
Yeah.
I said, wow. But it lasted for a while. It lasted for almost 2 hours, and then it came back. And well,
Yes.
but I think I think TNTech should be looking at these, especially these places that are off the main road.
Yeah.
Especially in this rainy season period. Anything can happen. So they got to have more patrols as to places like that.
I was talking to one of a businessman in Maraval, and he was saying to me that power outages in that part of Port of Spain is a regular thing. And he's saying that apart from, last night we would not have known about the mudslide situation and that national grid effect. He was simply stating that he was assigning the lack of power to another transformer burnout. He's saying that in certain parts of Trinidad, what they do is, rather than engage in preventative care, they wait until the transformer burn out, and then they will just change the transformer to something more modern. So rather than, in other words, allow the old ones to run its course, and when it burns out, well, then they upgrade it.
That doesn't make much sense, because the utilization of electricity now is far greater than that of yesteryear, when you would depend on these petty. I mean, oh gosh, step up the game where that is concerned. That is important. You have to be rocking with the times. If in one area had 5 houses that were utilizing the electricity, and now we have 100, you can't expect the old transformer to carry that workload. It's done. Yeah. Here's Richard. Richard is with us now.
Richard, how are you doing, my brother? All is well with you?
Turn on your microphone.
Yes, you hear me now?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reasonably well. I'm doing,
It's good to see you. It's good to see you.
Yeah. Nice to see you too, Farid. Nice to see you too.
Just for the sake of some housekeeping, David, I don't know if it is we have some clips to run. I know that in speaking to the producer, we were told that there's some sound bites to run in relation to the commission and some comments.
Yes.
Richard, we're supposed to be talking about crime today. I know that it's a perennial topic, and it's flourishing on a daily basis in terms of the information and the data with regard to criminality here. But we're delving into that again in some way, given the upsurge in numbers.
Yeah.
I was checking the stats, and I like to get the official information without saying anything.
Yeah.
It was being carried in the newspaper, that in today's newspaper also, that the upsurge in criminality has gotten to the level where we have today 137 more murders when we compare to the same period of 2021. So not up to about a week ago, we were saying that we were 100 murders ahead of the comparative total of last year for this period, January to July. And so between January and July of 2021, and January and July of 2022. If we were using the 1st of July as the cutoff period, we would have been just about 100 ahead in 2020. But given the last couple of weeks and heading into the period that we are now, we are actually 137 murders ahead of last year. So
I see.
I was listening to the commissioner, the acting commissioner, and he's saying that he's asking us to hold the strain and to have some faith that, you know, a number of measures have been put in place. But before we get there, let's compare the numbers, not the data. Just for the listening public, in 2017, the official recording from the TTPS is that there were 495 murders in Trinidad and Tobago. By 2018, that number had gone up from 495 to 517. So the increase would have been between 2017 and 2018, it would have just been just around 22. So there were 22 more murders, an uptick of 22 more murders if we compare the total statistics for 2017 and 2018. But it gets worse. In 2019, we moved from 517 the year before to 536 within a year between 2018 and 2019. By 2020, when we had COVID, which robbed us of so much, the numbers came all the way down to 393, and we had a commissioner of police then, Gary Griffith, who was stating that if people were of the view that COVID was responsible for keeping the numbers down, bringing it down from 536 in 2019 to 393 in 2020, his language was, if you believe it was COVID that brought that number down and not the TTPS crime policies, then you need to wheel and come again. That was his language, right? By 2021, we had gone up to 448. The irony is, if the jump from 2020 to 2021 was from 393 to 448, and we're already looking at 2022 at to this date, 364 murders. That trajectory seems to be hinting that we can safely say, if it is at the halfway stage, we are 364, we're looking easily at crossing 700 for the year, unless it is something radical takes place, unless it is we have, I don't know, one of two things, that the police get so seriously involved that they're able to clamp things down and lock things down on a level where we're restricting movement, we're restricting activity, and we're restricting the trust of criminality generally. I think you and me could be on the same page and saying here, if we're just relying on the raw statistics that we just quoted there, there isn't much hope that the figures could be limited to less than the 700 number figure. If we were to lend ourselves to another kind of statistic, the commissioner is on record of saying that for the year January to July 2022, where we are now, they've already seized 392 weapons, offensive weapons, and of that 392, 60 of them are high-powered weapons. High-powered meaning AK-47s and AR-15 weapons. He went so far to say that his intelligence, and when I say his intelligence, the TTPS data is stating that these guns are coming from Texas, Baltimore, Miami. So, you know, the notion that guns are coming out of Venezuela and crossing the border and just slipping into our shores, it seems to be coming from other sources. He went on to talk about there have been interceptions of weapons that are marquee to enter Trinidad coming out of the US. There have been interceptions from all the way back into Baltimore, Texas, and Miami. I guess that is why he can skillfully and stealthily mention those particular areas. My concern is, Richard, and maybe you can give me some input here. How do you feel when you hear statistics like this? Do you think it augurs for the man on the street who's listening to us now? Because when it is we have a prime minister who indicated in early July that crime is a public health issue, and it is now a public health issue. sources, Ansel Richards from the THA came out and said he would like to know where's the empirical data that the Prime Minister is relying on to make such a comment. I think we were able to debunk that. The Prime Minister would have adopted that, or may have adopted that, from the World Health Organization's position that they said that if you have 20 murders per year, if you have 10 murders per million, that in itself, that is the benchmark to determine whether you have a public health issue on your table. So Trinidad and Tobago, the irony is that we have 20.1 murders per million, and that places us in a position where, by definition, we have a public health crisis on our hands. So the issue is no longer where the Prime Minister adopted that equation or that rubric. The issue is that we have a problem. David, my position is all these statistics sound so nice and they're so colorfully put together. When I listen to Dr. Neptune Figaro, she being a criminologist, she came out and she said that, when we look at the criminality that is taking place, the criminality has no root what we need to do is to look at the root causes. The irony is we don't know what the root causes are. Sham Fakojo, our goodly minister, is stating that the root cause cannot be poverty because the government has enough social programs, YTEP, MyLot, to engage the minds of our young people. So when the Prime Minister is saying that he has an inter-ministerial approach to criminality now, that he's engaging in multi-ministerial approaches in terms of engaging the Ministry of Youth and Development, the Ministry of Sport and Culture, the Ministry of National Security, the THA. What we found ourselves in is Ansel Richards and Mr. Abdullah from the MSJ. They're coming out and saying, unless it is we are told what the plan is and how they intend to operationalize the plan, then the citizenry of this country isn't on board with how they contribute. So I don't want to be boring the public with all this academic dialogue. My thing is this: in the same way we have an education system that we often say isn't work oriented, meaning that you come qualify, you go to the university, you qualify yourself in whatever field, but until you could operationalize your qualification into a work related facet, then what we may find ourselves doing is having qualifications but unable to translate it into meaningful income or being able to add to GDP in some way. In other words, from an individual standpoint. My position is we have so many committees. There was a committee, David, that spoke to, remember those 3 murders in the Caledonia area in 2020, the one where recently 8 police officers were charged?
Yes.
Right. Richard, we were saying that there's a committee approach to dealing with the criminality now. I was alluding to the fact that in Second Caledonia in 2020, we had that very, I don't want to say popular, but infamous incident where 3 civilians were killed, and arising out of that, we had 8 police officers charged for murder. That report that was prepared, that committee that was put together to investigate that situation, it never came into the public space. What were the results of the committee? Mr. Abdullah was speaking that we have a committee approach to things, and when it is we have the incident where police exchange, well, it is alleged they exchanged gunfire with 3 young men in Independence Square South a few weeks ago in July, and 3 young men lost their lives, 2 teenagers and a 21-year-old. We haven't gotten the report on that from that committee yet, arising out of that investigation. So when it's ironic that we have all these committee stages, all these meetings, all these things that are being placed in the hands of a committee to draw information, to get results. The public isn't kept in the loop, or if it is they're not kept in the loop, the information isn't becoming public. It isn't made public as to what are the results of the committee. the committee's investigation? What are the findings? What are the projections in terms of changing things, in terms of addressing the issues that engage our minds? Mr. Abdullah he's saying that he has no trust and confidence in any of the committees that are put together, and hence this interministerial approach that our Prime Minister is embarking upon, without telling us what the game plan is, without telling us what is the paradigm and how he intends to operationalize and effectuate it. Our position is we are at a loss. Richard, you're back with us.
Yeah, Fareed. Yeah.
My question to you was, when it is you examine our crime situation, when it is you look at it from a statistical point, and you're seeing the numbers that are horrendous, if we may put it that way, right? The exponential increases in murder, the projections moving forward, the projections aren't pointing to anything positive. I have no issue with the fact that, we have a problem, because we will always have problems. I have an issue with the fact that we need to find an effective mechanism to at least reduce the levels of criminality. And I'm not too sure that there is a plan. When it is we hear the acting commissioner of police speak of the fact that the criminality that we are experiencing here is a criminality that is not synonymous with Trinidad and Tobago. It's something that Jamaica is putting measures in place right now. They're saying that they're trying to get guns off the street. There's an incentivization in Jamaica in terms of getting citizens to bring in their guns, getting citizens to share intelligence with regard to who has guns, and giving an incentive to the populace in terms of assisting the police. We have Melissa Neptune Figaro, our local criminologist, saying here that, and Mr. Wallace, another criminologist, both of them coming out and saying that incentivization program, that incentive that they tend to project on our population to give up guns, to provide intelligence as to who has guns, they say that reaps minimal what is your take on that?
That has been discussed here before many times. You would have heard that yourself too, Fareed, the amount of times that would have been discussed here as a potential solution to taking guns off the street. They have never really implemented it. I think they may have tried something in a kind of small step down way. But one of the issues was, if you were to do that, you interfere with some of the criminal matters before the court, which meant if they're waiting to find a gun to convict a person of murder, and that gun is allowed to come back in through any period of time where they get amnesty or whatever, could you use it thereafter to prosecute somebody? So that was a big part of the argument why it couldn't work, and therefore we didn't go ahead with it. I don't think it's something that is really meaningfully workable in a way to say, this approach may reduce crime by 25%, or at least gun crime 25%, 50%. I don't see it. If people wanted to rid themselves of the guns they have, they just throw them away. So they don't want to give up those guns. Saying you're doing that is like lip service, but also saying to the national community, you're trying something. Trying to do that also suggests that you're out of ideas. I was eating nuts like someone to the wrong place, but
I know the feeling. I've been there.
Yeah. But that is almost like suggesting to the listeners and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that the police service and the government, they have emptied the tank. They have nowhere else to go in terms of getting a creative approach to addressing this gun matter. And therefore I am saying, if they go there, that's what they'll be saying to me. And I hope they don't go there. I am for anything that could take one gun off the street. Yes, I am for that. But I am more for a robust approach Let me see if I can clear my throat here first, Farid.
Well, while you're doing that, the position is this. Of the 364 murders we've had for the year between January and July of 2022, what has been released into the public space is we've had 20 double murders. We've also had 3 triple murders. The acting commissioner recently said that what he's noticing is that we had a murder in number 1 Woodward Place in one of those popular sport bars recently, within the last couple of days. He's saying that imagine you have a murder taking place outside the police barracks, or just outside, walking distance from the official residence of the commissioner of police. And he's going so far to say that what he's recognizing is the trend of criminality and serious criminality is manifesting itself in increasingly in more public spaces. And, you know, we tend to want to say years ago and even months ago that, you know, the criminality is zeroing in on certain hotspots. Number 1 Woodbrook Place, in my understanding, and St. James are no hotspot. When it is you're looking at the locus where these activities are taking place now, it's expanding. Even in the East, seeing that I'm from the East, I'm reading recently in the newspaper that Tacarigua, which is such a small town, whose name is barely mentioned in the national editorial, they're now saying that there's a problem of criminality in Tacarigua. It's actually migrating into so many different areas, so many areas that were untouched for a long time. But having said that, criminologist Darius Figuera, he was recently saying that, and I'm tying it into what you were just saying, right? He recently said that in TNT, we've entered a state where the anarchy is so similar to Haiti and Honduras. He's going so far to say that the rules among criminals have changed. When we look at the levels of criminality, we were carrying the narrative that so much of our criminality, 100 murders plus each year, tends to be born out of intimate partner relationships. Yes, that may say, well, we have a social problem also and a problem at home, and we need to deal with you know, relationship issues. That even came to the surface when they were saying that during the 2-year COVID period, essentially that substantive period between March 2020 and now, that persons were forced to spend more time with each other at home, so there was more conflict, and naturally they were associating a certain level of violence born of the fact that we were forced to interact in a more intimate level. But that's just a facet of it. Figueroa is saying that this incentivization that they want to go on, this drive that they're suggesting, we have leading criminologists in this country, Darius Figueroa, the Mr. Wallace, the other Figueroa, Dr. Figueroa, all of them are coming out and saying that they don't see incentivization, they don't see offering incentives of any kind as being impactful. And in saying that the rules have changed, there was a recent study where Dr. Neptune Figueroa is saying they interviewed a gang leader, and he was saying that in order to deal with criminality, he's suggesting that the state up its game, and he was even incorporating defense attorneys. He's saying if defense attorneys say to their clientele that if it is you continue to behave in the manner you're behaving and execute your daily activity in the manner that you do, then I am not going to represent you. I'm not going to provide legal representation, defense representation to you. See, he's suggesting, I find it a bit puerile that he's going on that level, but he's even suggesting that the stakeholders in the society has a part to play, not just the police, not just the citizenry, but even the people who are playing their independent part in the administration of justice. If it is we were to assign value to what he's saying, Richard, are you saying from your point of view that we have a problem here that only requires a holistic approach, that we can't rely chiefly on the police to address on this issue?
I am saying overall, Farid, that it is the responsibility of the government, because the police is a government agency, to use the office that the ordinary man put them into to protect them, to use that office and protect them. They did not put politicians into office for the politicians to turn around and tell them what their problems are. The small man knew what his problem was or what his problems were. What he did is that he put a government in place to address the problems for the small man. So that what they're doing here now is trying to pass the buck and have, to me, what you call a baseless intellectual discourse taking place and not addressing the real issue. The talk will go on for the next 25 years, and people will continue to die consistent with those talks and discussions and conversations. So it is as though they're wasting the small man time in this country. The rich just always see for themselves. The government has to come up with a crime plan and do something to push back. This country only has 1.4 million people. You go to Singapore. When last you hear murder in Singapore, Google and see if you see. How come make it control that big country with so many millions of people in such a way? How so many other countries could do it? Of course, you'll have murders. We have 10, 20 for the year. Little Trinidad and Tobago, every day you turn around. I mean, just over the last weekend, you had 7 murders by the gun. That might not be the total murders of the weekend. It was 7 by the gun. There might be others that we would hear about during the course of the week that happened over the weekend, but it wasn't by the gun. So the system is out of control. The policies of the government, they have failed in many ways, however one chooses to look at it. And we just had to be frank. And what the small man has to do in this country, collectively singular, is to let the government become aware. Any government, not this one, because this happened before this government. Let the government be aware of the situation. When you're putting them in office, they must know that these are the things we wanted to address for us. I remember in a country, Daddy Mac, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Right, Daddy Mac, remember a guy won election on where the country asked him to clean up crime? What country that was again?
Oh boy.
What country that isn't? What country that is?
He won the election, Daddy Mac, and he started cleaning up.
Yes, I'm trying to remember the guy.
We discussed that, yeah.
The
people know they want to get rid of crime. They want a crime. They want somebody who will stop crime. They want to be able to use the streets freely again, go in the cars freely, be able to enjoy their property freely. The man said, if you elect me, I'll do what I want. You know, they elected him, and guess what? You know, he's still alive.
Richard, allow me to say this. Allow me to say this. I was looking at the Newsday.
See if you get the name of the country for us in the meantime.
Okay, great.
I was looking at the Newsday, Tuesday, the 16th of August, right? That's just yesterday. Our Goodly Acting Commissioner of Police says that he's cancelling the leave of 5 police officers in high crime areas. And he's indicating here, Jacob, and I'm quoting here, Jacob said officers will also be doubling up on working hours, with some moving from 24 hours on duty with 48 hours rest to 24 hours on duty with 24 hours rest. He said it may be difficult on the officers, but it is necessary to respond to increased crime rate. My position is this. We have Mr. Dersaran, Professor Dersaran spoke about that, because this is not the first time they've spoken about bringing police officers out and causing them to work longer hours or longer hours with shorter breaks. Dersaran even said that when it is you bring out a police officer and you have him work 24 hours and then he doesn't have a 48-hour relief, he comes back in 24 hours. We were there before, and the simple, when you look at the economies of scale, when you look at the natural synergy of a working individual in such a high stress job, how motivated that officer, how prepared is he going to be when he has to face another day's work in less than 24 hours to deal with serious crime? I don't see overworking an officer, overextending a police officer is going to make any difference. You're bringing these guys back out from leave. What he ought to do is put more trust and confidence in the staff that he has. Encourage the officers who would have worked on a lower level to increase their productivity, motivate them. I'm not saying the motivation has to be anything in terms of salary. I'm talking about motivation in terms of find a way to tell them that this is a team effort, that you can't be just putting the pressure on let us say, Assistant Superintendent Brandon John to come out there now and rally the forces, deprive him of an extra 24 hours home, which he would have normally been entitled to. I'm thinking, what I'm saying, Richard, is it's almost like we're recycling policies and resonating things that was done in the past. And the blueprint is not changing.
It isn't. Farid, let me tell you something. I told you earlier on, right? The tank almost empty. You just said for yourself, we've been there before on this matter. Look, they're going back to it. This is like what they say, no, a dog going back to its expectoration. In this country, we would say to the vomit, right? Yeah. Things that were tried and failed because there are no new ideas. They're hoping people forget what they tried 5 years ago and they're going back to it and trying to peddle it as with something new. They won't work. We need new policies for the new times we're in. If you can't get new policies for the new times that we're in, you are the wrong people to manage the affairs of the country, because you need people who could relate to the time that we're into so they could create the policies to suit the time. Now, let me give you an example. When you put a police officer out there for 24 hours, listen, you don't have to go to primary school to know this, you know. As a child in primary school, you know, if they keep you for 24 hours, by the time you're in the 18th hour, you're not hearing anybody again. You lost patience, you're walking and sleeping, and then they put a gun in a man's hand, and he walking. What I want to do, give bandits an opportunity to disarm police and leave with the gun. You want to find police officers sleeping in the van or leaning up on a van, sleeping on the gun drop, and a bandit take it? That's what I want. That makes no sense. I was going through Amsterdam the other day, the Netherlands, right? The airport. Normally, going through all these international airports, people are very courteous and nice. The officials there. But in this airport here, is bad marketing for you all Netherlands. I had a laugh. We going to Netherlands, right? And I hear some nice little ladies making hear like their voice almost done. And listen, I'm not in that kind of business, but I'm just trying to see if I can replicate what I was hearing. No, go out to that line. No, across here. No. That's how they behaving. I going up this since before I see the people. That is why I hear it taking place up in front. So I look. That's how they're talking to everybody, whether you're an old person, a young person. And so when I saw a cool looking one, I said, excuse me, sir, you're talking English? He said, yes. I said, here now. That's how they sung all the time. And he said, oh, no, they are stressed out. I said, I mean, they're stressed out. Shortage of staff. They are overworked. I said, you can hear it. They're really. So I'm saying that to say, the way how those women were sounding and behaving, impatient. Yeah. And you dealing with guests and things coming into a country that bringing revenue, right? Yeah. They won't cussing or anything like that, but you can see they don't have the attention span to apply the information or communicate to people in a way consistent to how they have been trained. But because they're tired, because they want to rest, because they want to get through quickly, they drop all the principles and standards and they're just operating in an ad hoc way now. You understand what I'm saying? They lost control. And you want to bring police, you want to tell police officers that is the way of the future. Which future? For which country? To govern whom? I want to tell you, if they do that, listen, police officers, imagine you don't know how police officers behave in this country already, right? They just had breakfast and they talked to one and he sung like he worked 24 hours already. They had no patience. Imagine you really get them after around 24 hours. Some of them going to be talking with the gun, you know. Yes, I tell you, don't go, like, bam. That's it. I mean, come on, you're crazy. They're crazy in this country. Police are no patient and they just had to fire people because I talked to him 3 times. I talked to him 5 times. I mean, come on. I had to control. I had to maintain control. So I had the weapon and I believe he looked like he was about to threaten me. So I had to do what I did, if you know what I mean. That's what you want in this country. Nah. So I'm saying that to say I don't support that at all. I mean, I might have carried on a little stretch there. But that's to accentuate the point, how ludicrous it would be to consider such an arrangement. You could work for 24 hours, Faris, straight, non-stop.
it's impossible. And to get the best out of an individual, I can't see that we doing that in these modern times. I mean, that's a lot of pressure on a human being. But let's go somewhere else here now. I recently listened to an interview with the Minister of National Security. He was on the morning breakfast show. He was speaking. What I can't accept, and I'm not critical of him because I know him otherwise. I know him personally, and I think he's a good guy overall. But he was saying that the government has invested a tremendous amount of money in putting the infrastructure, the institutional infrastructure in place. And I guess he was referring to the spyware. He was also referring to the investment in terms of more vehicles for police officers, modern vehicles, the investment in terms of increasing the database of information and synergy between one police station and the next in terms of determining whether there's a warrant out for the arrest of Farid Ali or Richard Norrie. So, you know, a criminal wouldn't be loose in Togo and the intelligence is in Port of Spain. You can check it right there on the database. So these are the things that they're putting in place. Now, he's talking about the upgrading the DNA testing, the fingerprinting. But unless it is we can arrest suspects, unless it is we can engage the data that speaks to who are the persons of interest, who are the suspects, who are the usual suspects. So if it is, you know, let's use something very simple. If it is, you know, that there is a predial larceny position in Arangways, and people tend to lose crops, and there's a pattern of behavior. You would know that, you know, Paul is the man who is accustomed doing this thing. We arrest him a few times, so you may not want to, you know, stereotypically zeroing on him, but at least you have an idea who are the usual suspects, the persons involved in these things. So if there's a pool of persons and there's intelligence out there, you build your pool and you associate, at least at the first level, you associate certain things with certain individuals, you check them out first. I'm not too sure whether we have that sort of intelligence on the ground. My position is, and I just want to allude to something. When I look at the editorial, I'm reading in the Wednesday, August 10th newspaper, the Newsday. It was carried out in St. Lucia. The St. Lucia police clarified a statement made by the Commissioner of Police. And David, what they were saying is this: the Commissioner of Police in St. Lucia, Milton Desir, he said that they need to, and they meaning the TTPS, well, I'm saying the TTS, the equivalent of the TTPS in St. Lucia, the St. Lucia Police Force. Mm-hmm. He was saying that they need to tap into more cyber investigations, ballistic testings, and also suggesting continuous training to cover modern criminal patterns and practices. In other words, he's saying that there must be a sharing of the know-how and the data in relation to how to address criminality, not just within St. Lucia, but with the other Caribbean islands and even more developed countries. So, but I'm saying, you know, I'm reading that the commission is saying this in St. Lucia, but we have been there before. We are ahead of St. Lucia in relation to sharing our methodology and adopting methodologies from abroad. We are ahead in terms of legislation, in terms of the DNA legislation. Richard, I'm saying that when we look at the Commissioner of Police and the equivalent of the St. Lucia Police Force, they are suggesting that more intelligence-based investigations ought to be conducted. That he was suggesting that the way to fight crime is to have more DNA analysis involved, more cybercrime investigations embarked upon, greater ballistic testing and continuous training. This is what is carried in the editorial of the newspaper, August 10th, the Newsday. And I'm saying, but we've been ahead of St. Lucia in that regard. We've been lasing, we've been synergizing. We've had that relationship with more developed countries under Gary Griffith. I'm sure that policy has been extended under the acting commissioner now. And yet still our criminality is what it is. So my problem and my issue is, If it is our Minister of National Security is consoling us in the fact that if it is we examine Jamaica, St. Lucia, up the Caribbean, Barbados, and he's looking at other developed countries, he's even alluded to Mexico. He's making comparisons and trying to soothe our fears in the fact that the criminality that we are experiencing now is a byproduct of the globe as it is. It's almost as if he's saying to us, and what frightens me is our acting commissioner of police recently said that he is trying, the policies we are engaging now, he's trying to keep the murder rate as low as 30 per month in order to keep the general statistic from running into exponential increase at the end of the year. So it scares me, Richard, when it is I have my commissioner saying, my acting commissioner stating that he wants to keep it at 30 per month. Can you imagine, David, that what we're going to be consoling ourselves in it?
That's madness, bro.
Is that we're going to accept that 30 people have to die each month between July and December?
That's a lot of people. One is too much.
How long it will take him to change that mindset? The time it will take him just to change that mindset, a lot more people would die. Therefore, he has volunteered. While I think he's a nice person too, he has volunteered in that statement that he's not the man for the job. Because often, to move forward, you have to be able to embrace certain things. If you're in a job like that, you have to embrace one murder is too many. One murder, for example, is too many. And therefore, your focus is to do everything legally, humanly possible to produce an outcome where there's absolutely no more murders. Yeah. Yes, some would happen, but it's a standard that you may not be able to accomplish. But I am aiming for that. What if I achieve that? That would be remarkable. But when you set out with a mindset that 30 had to die, when a new month started, you hear 12 people dead, murdered, you're telling yourself, okay, I still have a wiggle room at 18.
Yeah.
You know? 18 more could go. It's only when I cross 18 more, then I will start to look bad. So if at the end of the month you hear it turn out to be 28 or 29, here you tell yourself, I performed good. You didn't bring one man to justice, but it turned out to be 29, and you said, well, you know, we have a kind of tolerance level of 30, and it was only 28 or 29, so we didn't do too badly. We actually saved one or two persons' lives. We expected it to be 30, but it turned out to be 28. So it's a fairly good movement in the right direction. Yeah, right. So when you had a mindset, you are not going to go out there with the type of high energy level, the robustness in fighting crime that you should have within your system and within you personally. To go out there, your motivational level, it will not be where it's supposed to be. Your valence should be very low. And if you go to fight crime at a low valence, fighting crime like that and not fighting crime is one and the same.
Well, let me say something else, and this is a piece of irony. Again, I like to look at the editorial. The Daily Express, the 12th of August, 2022. David, hear this one, right? Mm-hmm. I'm reading here. A relative of a cyclist who was killed on Sunday night believes the victim was robbed of his work earnings after the collision. So he was involved in an accident. He died, unfortunately. And the relative is saying that Brandon Ramdas, age 26, a driver of Taruba Road, Taruba, was killed almost instantly after he was struck by a vehicle on the San Fernando bypass. Yeah. Oh, what's they going down the road to say? I am speculating that when the tragedy happened, whoever was on the scene at the time, or at that point in time, whether it be the police, the wrecker man, a pedestrian, a driver, whoever the case may be, the money went missing. Apparently, the man is a salesman. He sells LPG tanks. And the company he's working with is saying that their information is that he would have collected about $3,300 in cash and would have had that on his person when it is he was involved in the collision. So the criminality, Richard, has gone to the levels where, imagine a man get bounced down on the road in San Fernando, in Taruba.
And he getting robbed.
They rob a dead man. They take $3,300 off the dead man, and they're speculating whether it's the police or pedestrians. Imagine that's the level of disrespect that we're facing with now.
Furries, but the other ask yourself, there's a principle alone known as causation. What would cause people to rob the dead? I remember this country, If you see a man dead or anything and money falling out his shoulder pants, you don't want no part to do with that. That's a dead man money. You don't want it in your hand. You don't want to touch that. Today, you're going to rob a man who has fallen into everlasting sleep with ease, comfortable. You're hoping you can get money off the body before somebody see you. Because if it's one thing, he's not going to tell anybody he get robbed. You understand? No, and Faris, what is causing that is the failed policies of the country. Money has become so hard for people to get now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? That stealing from a dead person appears to be an encouraging act.
Yeah.
That's madness. That's madness. I know people long ago, Faris, who didn't even want to inherit a house from a family member who died, Let me tell you something about people I know. If you had to leave a house long ago with this my family to be go, you had to give one a house, give it to them while they're alive.
But
if you go to parts of Tobago to this day, I'm telling you, if you see a nice house and nobody lives in it, especially heading up to like Richmond River, Belgarden, Argyle, probably even Roxbourne just beyond, heading further that side, don't be surprised if somebody who get that in a will and they are concerned about going in the property. Not that the person died on the property,
Yeah.
They feel in a strange way that this was given to me as a gift as a result of the death of somebody. So they're watching the door handle and everything in a kind of strange, morbid way. They don't want it. And today you telling me men going past that, Why nothing is wrong with that arrangement? In Trinidad now, people looking to see if you're dead.
Yeah.
To stick their hand in your pocket or your shirt jacket or something, and go and buy food or something with that money right now and eat,
Well, another thing is this. I read I recently read where they're encouraging the police officers to wear their gray kit, as they say. Persons are robbing individuals wearing what seems to be police uniforms. So my concern is where they're getting the police kit or things that resemble the police kit on that level. So much so that what the commissioner is doing is encouraging his officers when they're out on patrol to wear the gray and the blue, because it appears that is less easy to replicate. Maybe because it's the particular shade of blue, I don't know.
Well, look at this. I want to say this for you, right there in Apple. Let me commend the commissioner of police. That's what you call, at least he's thinking. That makes sense. And to alert the public too. So that the uniform the bandits use, and once you see the men declare themselves as police and they wear that uniform, you almost had the right now to say, I'm not talking to you. You're in the wrong uniform. Knock or call me when you wear the gray. I'm not sure you are who you are. Your uniform is trying to inform me you are. So I'm not coming out there. I might get robbed. Change the uniform and come back. Right? So I want to commend the commissioner of police, if you see who said that, for taking that. To me, it might be small, but it could be life-changing, because what he has done there is say to those wannabe police officers in the criminal sense, not they don't want to be real police officers, they just want to so purport and posture as such. And that posturing with the uniform is a deceptive factor to rob innocent, unsuspected, law-abiding citizens. And that's what we don't want. So what he has done is kind of hopefully nullify a big part of that operation they have. Where now if they had to go and look for new uniform or see how they can replicate the others, that might take them another 6 months. And that group doing that might be out of business for the next 6 months. That could be helpful. I want to thank the officer for that. But he had to go further now. He must call on the parliamentarians. I know they have a law for the military. If you wear the camouflage, I don't know if they have for police officers. But you have to make those things so severely punishable. You know, you're caught in a police uniform. You're not a police officer. It meant you had assumed powers to instruct people that would have caused innocent people to operate under your instructions. And in so doing, you could have killed them, you could have kidnapped them, you could have raped them, you could have robbed them while wearing their uniform. What should you do to such a person who dressed themselves like that? That to me should be an offense of strict liability. Because you wouldn't catch them with the uniform in the bag, you know. You had to catch the uniform on the body. They can't take it off so quickly. Take a picture. Say, look at him. Strict liability. 20 years. 20 years. You know, we don't want no intention or actus reus to meet mens rea. We don't want that. Strict liability. We have a picture in the uniform. You're not a police. That is why you're suffering from no mental abnormality. You're going down the road for 20 years. So when people hear that, and you say, if I put on a police uniform, I could go and rob that gas station or here and get away. When you study what you can get from the gas station and what the consequence could be if you are caught, you know, right away that thought leave your head. When you hear, well, listen, at 20 today, if they catch me, I'm coming out till I 40. You see, that's enough to say, let the people run the gas station. Let's look for something a bit more simplistic. Perhaps the guy who's selling Beneball, we could run past quickly. Well, I never say that. Those Beneball fellas need to make the money to all the small vendors. I apologize, but I didn't go too far. You know, but they're going to look for something smaller.
With the former commissioner of police, Gary Griffith, they didn't need crime plans. He said
no. Gary was out there. No crime plan was needed. Gary had intelligence. The police officers were operating, how should I say, more effectively and complying with police operations under Gary Griffith, either because they knew he was a captain in the army, or they knew that, plus they knew he was Nihil's trained, and in addition to that, they seen him as commissioner coming outside to lead tactical operation. So in other words, he was saying to them, this is leadership by demonstration. I'm not asking you all to go and do what I will not instruct myself to do. Gary was informing himself, this is what I had to do. And when they see he was doing it, waiting, they felt they had to do. They felt compelled to do the same. And therefore, people saying, if they had to be as good as Gary, they had to operate like Gary. And you find police were out there, pleasant but effective, trying to get things done, roadblock here, so on and so on. To me, the bandits were pulling back because here what they were seeing. The police really look like they have become a bit emboldened under Gary Griffith's leadership. And to me, it was a huge positive. But because one man in the country, for whatever reason, declared he lost confidence in him. And why he say he lost confidence in me? Ever say why he lost confidence in him?
Never.
I think what he kind of implied was the gun license, the FULs. That is not a problem. People could have FULs. That's why you give them out. You had a commissioner who decided, well, listen, if you apply and he could get the process perhaps to work faster if you qualify. That's all he was doing. It's not country we have. If Faree's going to apply for a gun and he qualify, why Faree's must wait 5 years for something that he's qualified for and could get in 2 days? Why he must wait 5 years for that? That makes sense? So what the guy was saying that I interpreted, he said it on our show too, that, you know, there was a department running it, but in other words, what he suggested to them, instructed to them, or something like that, was if people qualify, they could only qualify if they fulfill all the requirements on the form and they go through everything, right? If they meet the threshold, then why hesitate to give them the FUL? That don't make sense. Give it to them. And I don't know that you would lose, that could cause you to lose confidence in an individual. I don't know that is enough to do that.
Here is my question. I recently was looking at just generally what the criminal situation is, the crime situation is outside of our jurisdiction. The Mexican president, he is now seeking to incorporate the army in the fight against crime in Mexico. They were saying, and when they look at the general data as it relates to Mexico itself, he is saying that criminality has gotten so out of control in Mexico that he wants to incorporate the military working in collaboration with the National Guard. Now, what happened is in Mexico, they have the National Guard that has they have a portfolio. Their portfolio is to work and work on the street and to try to control crime. This is apart from general policing. Now, David, the reason why the National Guard in Mexico got involved is because there was an issue of serious criminality and corruption among the police in Mexico. Yeah. So what they did is they got the former president of Mexico, realizing between 2006 and 2022, there were over 350,000 murders in Mexico. I mean, think about it. 350,000 murders between 2006 and now. Yeah. And now their population it's a totally different narrative, right? But such were the levels of criminality and such were the levels of high incidence of murders and serious criminality that the police couldn't be trusted. When the current President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador won the election in 2019, he was trying to get the army less involved in the fight against crime, because it was inconsistent with what the United Nations and the human rights groups have long expressed. The international agencies, such as the United Nations, they were saying that, and when I say they simply were mandating that it's dangerous in democracies to have the military working hand in hand with the government in relation to executing government policy. In other words, when you have the military working so closely with the sitting incumbent government, there increases the chances for corruption. So the United Nations is saying that from a human rights perspective, the police should be allowed to perform their function. But I'm just saying, and I'm in no way casting aspersions on the character of the TTPS. I'm saying that clearly what we can surmise is that the TTPS doesn't have a hand on the criminality right now.
No way.
And my question is this, and I know that our history is a bit different because we had the 1970 experience. Is it that, and can we pass legislation or find a way to have the army, the defense force work closely with the police in dealing with the issue of criminality? Now, I'm not saying, of course, they're going to come out and say that the defense force works in team and in tandem with the police. So when they have to go into a hotspot or they have to go into areas where there is serious criminality, they work in tandem and the police do the leading. The police are responsible for detention, restraining, arrests, whereas the army just provide support in that exercise. My thing is, if Mexico is stating, and its President Lopez Obrador is stating, that though policy-wise he didn't want to involve the army in the fight against crime, now he's forced to. So he has to revise his manifesto, so to speak. He has to revise his approach.
Yes.
I'm thinking maybe what we should look at now is maybe legislatively, we ought to incorporate the army in a more meaningful manner. Richard, you're back with us. Basically, what I was alluding to the fact that when we look at the situation in Mexico, the president of Mexico is currently on a drive. He's saying there's so much corruption amongst the police in Mexico that he had to incorporate the army. He had to get the army involved in the police, in doing what we may parallelly consider policing work, because the trust and confidence in the police in Mexico has dwindled to levels where not even the president has confidence that the police has the capacity to deal with the crime in Mexico. He has gotten the National Guard and the army more involved in dealing with crime. And this is Mexico. That is their model. I am not saying that we are that level, but let's bear in mind this, David and Richard. In Gary Griffith's time, the 3 years that he was Commissioner of Police, 292 officers, police officers, were charged for serious for crimes. They were suspended before out of the service and couldn't work until they cleared their names before the court. 292 police officers in a population of 7,000 police is a lot. David, did you notice in the last couple of days we had two police officers charged for misbehavior in public office?
Yes, one for money laundering and all.
Right. And what we're looking at is how often have we been seeing this on a weekly basis or a monthly basis in this country? This is not an anomaly. So the criminality has to be married to the fact that there's a breakdown in the institutions amongst the stakeholders that are mandated to look after our interests. Maybe what we should be looking at now is perhaps in this multi-ministerial approach that our Prime Minister is saying he's embarking upon, we still haven't gotten the formula, and he still hasn't shared with us the blueprint as to how this is to be executed. We just know that it exists and it subsists. My position is maybe they should be looking at, from a national security perspective, finding ways and means of getting the army involved, the defense force involved, more so not just in the capacity of working in tandem with the TTPS, but perhaps empowering them to be able to maybe to execute arrests, maybe to get more involved on a deeper way. My position is I cannot see where we're going. I cannot see what is the plan, how we are going to bring these numbers down. Richard, if I may allude to something, and I did it before, but I'm mentioning it again. The CSO, we have to look at the database of information that we have, and we have to look at the targets that we are looking to achieve. When we look at the CSO statistics, it's being said that there are over 600,000 young people under the age of 30 in Trinidad and Tobago. And of those 600,000 young people under the age of 30, we have a population of, or let us say a total number of youngsters under the age of 18, which is more than 300,000. So imagine 600,000 people under the age of 18. Of that 600,000 people under the age of 30. Of that 600,000, we have half of that, 300,000, are persons under the age of 18. And the other numbers point to 273,000 people under the ages of 16. So when we're looking at a population of 600,000 young people, I am not too sure that this MILAD program and the YTEP program and the social programs, how are they going to determine of those 600,000, how many of those what percentage of those are at risk? Those numbers, what are the at-risk numbers of the 600,000? Where are those numbers concentrated, and how do we reach them in their catchment area? Meaning that if it is we saying that there is a problem with 100 youths in Bacadere, 200 youths in Point Fortin, we are looking at a database of, in the East-West corridor, we are targeting 50,000 young persons. Where are the resources being concentrated, and how are the resources being distributed in order for these social programs to meet them in their catchment area? So to say that, we have the MILOT program, we have the YTEP program, we have all these social programs that government is spending tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in. We don't know if it is these programs and this investment is actually targeting the community that is that has a problem. What if it is you're miscalculating, and what confidence does the public have out there that the funding is database, the funding is touching and touching and actually being funneled, channels and harnessed and contained into the areas that has the need. I'm really disturbed, David and Richard. I don't think that we the public the persons who are affected by the criminality, and I'm saying the persons who are affected because I've never read in the newspaper where a minister has been robbed. I've never read where a prime minister was held up at gunpoint. I've never read where certain stakeholders have found themselves victims of serious criminality. It's always the poor man, always the man on the street, always the lower middle class individual, the middle class individual, the rank and file. The people who are dying aren't bankers, accountants, lawyers. You know, is the rank and file, the man on the ground. So we already know who the victims are. My concern is, where are we going to get, how are we going to translate or transpose that blueprint that the prime minister has, that he's keeping very close to his chest, because up to now, in the month of July to where we are in August now, Richard, are you aware of what this blueprint is? You have any notion as to what is the blueprint and what is the plan to execute this blueprint?
Well,
he's frozen up.
Yeah, he's here. Richard?
Yeah, I have no idea. I was talking, I was muted. Sorry. I have no idea what that blueprint is, Farid. None.
I think
Do you have any idea what it is?
That blueprint talk is just like the talk about committees.
Yeah, yeah.
And commissions of
I more believe that. I want to tell you, I more believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all we hear.
Committee up, and
yeah.
you know nothing coming from it.
Yeah.
That's that.
See, when they set the committee up, they leave people with an expectation. And then you just there waiting and expecting and looking forward to, but nothing happens.
Nothing.
They don't implement
but
anything.
The committees reference every time you raise something that the committee is doing its work.
Yeah.
And soon we will have a report in and we will go through it and we'll see where we go from there. Nothing happens.
Nothing
and
happens.
Before I get that report, something else happened and everybody forget that committee, you know.
And there's another
kill the issue.
There's another case.
Listen, Daddy Mac.
Yeah.
It is an issue killing strategy.
Yes.
So from the time an issue comes up, committee. Because we put committee, here what the committee is to say to the nation. The government is there. The government is aware of the problem. And the government has started the process to address it.
Yeah.
And as soon as they tell you that, whenever you raise it, the committee is doing its work.
Yeah.
Don't ask me that. That's what they're saying, you know.
Yeah.
We wait on the committee. And then you never hear the conclusion of the work of the committee. And that issue dies a natural death. And then they say they're creative. And if you have to say they're creative, you're saying we lack all the creativity in the world. And if you say they're bright, we're also saying we have very stupid people.
There's another cliche that says the investigation is going on. Full stop.
And they can't do anything. And they don't want to speak on it. Yeah, they try to discipline you. I don't know how you could ask such a question when that matter is under investigation. When you ought to know that we cannot speak about these things when an investigation is being run. Let's wait. Let the investigators do their work. When their work is finished, they will produce the report. The report will tell us what their findings are. And after we see what those findings are, then you can ask me that question. But for now, way too premature. You know? And they make you feel bad. You know, like you're a silly person. Why is I ask that now? All these things are done and designed to deflect, not to answer the question, not to manage the economy, but keep the poor people poor and help them to become poorer. So the government, whenever the people just before it look like they're dying, to promise to buy food for them, and the trade-off is a vote. That's why they want to put the small man to accept very little or nothing and become just a voting bank. Eat and vote. And after you vote, shut up till I'm ready to feed you again. If you go however you hang, you swing. Let the people of this country continue. The people of this country are too bright for it. The millennials will not accept it. And I want to tell all you, if the millennials will reject that, you can imagine what Generation X will do.
I'm telling you.
Get serious. So
let's look at something else.
Take that old-time approach. Take that antiquated approach. And I want to reference the Prime Minister and put it where the monkey puts the nuts.
Yeah.
Go and rock so with that old talk. It's only old talk. Committee, investigation,
Yeah.
all those things. Nonsense talk. You know what it all amount to? Nothing for the poor. No protection, no contract, no employment, no money, increasing inflation, hard life, hard, heavy cost of living. They're going to suffer you and drive you into the ground. That's what it means.
And
you're
will
gonna
send
stand
up the
up and
crime.
correct them.
Will send up criminality.
Would send up criminality, and then they'll come back again with another report from another criminologist.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
But
criminologist is doing a paper. Oh, he just finished it, and we are going to look at it. We're going to study it, and we'll come back. But the government will respond. Will respond how and when? Take that. Listen, I want to say to those people in office again, and I mean it respectfully. Stop annoying the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Do the job that they elected it to do. If you can't do it, say so. And I
right.
think you're
So,
actually saying so already with your committees and all your old talk. Yeah.
we are saying that, right? I am agreeing with you on some level, but I don't think that the police share our views, I was recently looking at another editorial, Saturday, the 23rd of July, 2022. Neil Brandon John, senior superintendent, he had some coy things to say. And then so much so that the head of the Port of Spain City Police, Superintendent Glenn Charles, he said, and I'm quoting here, in making the city safer, there have been multiple consultations through town meetings. So apparently he's saying that there have been, contrary to what we may be thinking, there have been some sort of synergy between the business community, the police, and the civilian population. Apparently, I wasn't aware that there were town meetings, but he's alluding to the fact that there were multiple consultations through town meetings. He went on to say that coming out of that, we, the TTPS, did things. Senior Superintendent Brandon John, he created a comprehensive operational plan between January and December. He's saying that. And the plan was taken to the executive of the TTPS and approved. So what they're saying is arising out of the town meetings, Richard and David. Apparently, the data that they got, the information, the intelligence, arising from information derived from the public, information derived from the business sector, they have the business sector and the civilian population gave their views, and there was a plan that was devised. This is just dealing with Port of Spain. He goes on to say this. The plan was taken to the executive of the TTPS and approved. Our role as city police officers is really to lend a hand in terms of pooling resources, whether it be physical or whatever, to ensure that all aspects of the plan is carried out with success. So David, what he's saying is here, and this is Superintendent Glenn Charles. Charles said there was a link between the police and businesses to gather information on criminal
excuse me,
conduct.
just so 1 minute, 1 minute. I'm trying to take a brief call. Yeah.
So, David, what he's saying that Charles said there was a link between the police and businesses to gather information on criminal conduct and address it through predictive policing. So it seems that they're contradicting us here. Apparently, there have been town meetings, if we were to believe this editorial. And there have been dialogues, and that there was a plan that was suggested, and the plan was put in place, and the plan is all to get towards predictive policing. My position is, if it is we were engaging in predictive policing, and there's a plan that has been operating in the city of Port of Spain, my concern is, what is the plan for Point Fortin Library? What is the plan for the East-West Corridor? What I want to do is, I don't want to say that the plan is futile. I don't want to condemn the plan, right? I want to say that if there is a plan and there have been dialogues, then we could only commend them for having the town meetings and for engaging in the dialogue. But my thing is, that plan is only a plan that it speaks to Port of Spain. These murders, these 364 murders that have taken place for the year thus far, this is not Port of Spain oriented alone. No. The vast majority of those would have been outside of Port of Spain, but yet still they're harping on there's predictive policing taking place in Port of Spain. The business community had a meeting with a town meeting. They had discussions with the civilian population as well as the business population, and we're looking at meaningful ways to address criminality. I am not seeing the results of that, and I'm disturbed. I'm increasingly concerned because, you and I may say, I don't know if whether if you've had within recent times or in your history, any direct impact in terms of, losing relatives to acts of murder or friends. But this thing is flourishing at such a level that even if it is we escaped unscathed to August 2022, it's increasingly possible that this is going to hit home on one of us at some point in time, if not on family, but on friends and relatives, because it's the circle of criminality has increased, and the concentric rings of criminality has widened, and the contours are changing on a daily basis. That no one is going to escape unscathed. At some point in time, we're going to be feeling the pinch and the heavy hand right on our doorstep.
Yeah, because in my area, which is mostly quiet for lengthy periods, it's a one-off kind of thing. Sometimes you might hear something violent or some kind of criminal, episode that is of a certain level. But lately, I find it's increasing. It's increasing, and I heard the commissioner said that the criminals now have moved away from the hot spots and the red zones where it's higher, and they're now going on neutral grounds. Well, those are statements I don't understand from the head of the police.
Right.
Why make a statement like that when the intention is to clean up the criminality? And if you should say you're accepting 30 a month, well, brother, we're in a real bad place.
Well, let's mention something else, David.
Yeah.
Like everything else, I like to be database oriented in terms of the statistics I'm quoting. I'm looking at the August 5th, 2022 Newsday. It is being carried in one of the articles there by Sean Douglas that for the first 6 months of 2022, we've had 718 vehicles stolen in 6 months.
You could imagine that.
So it's not just about gunplay and murder.
No.
It's not just about high rises in intimate partner relationships. It was even carried in one editorial that for the first 6 months of the year, 152 young women, young females, went missing in this country. They recovered 142 of them. And they were saying that of those 152 young women that ran away from home or that went missing, that is usually as a direct result of, they being mistreated at home, or according to the Child Protection Unit, a lot of them are victims of sexual grooming.
Yeah.
So I'm just marrying the dialogue along the lines of we have a serious issue involving criminality, involving our young people, those 600,000 young persons under the age of 30, 300,000 young persons under the age of 18. We have levels of criminality that is directly impacting on these young minds.
Of course.
You have 152 young women missing each year, and then if you have data that reflects that these young women, 140 plus, that return when they interview them and they get the data, information that a lot of them are fleeing what we term sexual grooming, fleeing activity that is challenging their humanity right in their own homes. That is alarming. And then to come now and say, when we're looking at vehicles, 718 vehicles stolen in the first 6 months of the year.
Yeah.
So where does the statistics take us? According to this, and maybe the public, we could educate the public here in case they don't know. They were looking at the vehicles that were targeted. They're saying that of these 718 vehicles, 113 were Toyota Aqua. In terms of Nissan AD wagons, it's 70. In terms of Nissan B14, 37. Toyota Fielder, 35. In examining the statistics, there seems to be a scientific approach to the vehicles that are stolen. It's specific vehicles. If you're driving, if you're in possession of a Toyota Aqua, a Nissan AD wagon, a Nissan B14, a Toyota Fielder, these are vehicles that are targeted by the criminal elements.
Yeah.
And they went on to deal with the issue as it relates to divisions. Of the 718 stolen, 223 were in the Northern Division, 136 were in the Central Division, 98 in the Northeastern Division, and 83 in the Southern Division. So the concentration, yes, it's in the Northern Division, but we can't say, well, you know, if the Southern Division is they suffer the least disbenefit, then they should breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not saying that at all. My thing is, crime only flourishes, you know, it doesn't grow, it doesn't decrease or decelerate unless there's a policy and unless there's a plan. It increases.
That's right.
So a man like you who lives in the Southland, you can't afford to rest on your laurels and say, well, boy, of the 700 vehicles they steal so far is only 83 from South.
Yeah.
So you ought to feel safe.
I think that's an understatement of a count. You know, I don't think that count could be correct. That is what probably was reported.
Yeah.
You always hear about people losing their vehicles. I hear that a lot in South too.
Yeah.
I probably heard that more than 83 times.
But let's look at another statistic. I'm looking at the May 31st, 2022, an article by Jonathan Bagon, an editorial. He was stating, and he was looking at the intimate partner levels of violence. He's saying that the TTPS noted a large increase in domestic violence reports. Yeah. From the year 2018 to 2020, there were 2,710 domestic violence cases reported to the TTPS. Mm-hmm. So in that 2-year period, between 2018 and 2020, that's the pre-COVID period, right?
Yeah.
2,710 domestic violence cases. This is reported cases. Remember, bear in mind, not everybody reports a crime.
That's right.
Not everybody has the confidence and the gumption to go before the TTPS, walk into a police station, make a report about violence that they're subjected to at home.
Yeah.
Or from an intimate partner. So in that 2-year period, when we're looking at 2,710 domestic violence cases, that is just an understatement of what we know already happens.
That's right.
He's saying, and Mr. Bagan is saying in his article that for the period 2020 to 2022, the figures rose to 4,857 reports. So we have to look at the data, whether the data is a proper reflection or a true reflection. You and I know that the data, reported crime is never a proper reflection of the true levels of criminality.
Never.
But if we just were to accept this data, we've had a jump in 2 years from 2,710 domestic violence cases to as much as
4,000 plus.
4,857. So generally, the murder totals, the vehicles stolen each year, we're looking at the levels of intimate partner violence, we're looking at young girls running away from home.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I'm not knocking the government, I'm not knocking anybody here, I'm just stating that we live in a society where the criminality, if it is we didn't believe that it was something to be feared, we ought to fear it now because the statistics are damning. And it's going to hit home at some point in time for those of you all listening out there, whether you like it or not. Looking at data again, I'm looking at the official Trinidad and Tobago Police Service releases. They're saying in 2015, we had 2,469 reported cases of robbery. In 2016, it jumped to 2,616. So that's just under a 200 number increase, but 200 incidents of increase from 1 year to the next is still an increase. It means it's showing
that is plenty.
It's showing levels of consistency.
Yeah.
I am saying that the police have not, on their own data, this is not data coming out of an NGO. This is a data that they release. If the TTPS is reporting to us that the number of robberies between 2015 and 2016 has increased by 200, and then they go on to say, and I'm quoting it, from 2016, you move from 2,616 to 2,912. Then we're looking at another 300 increase between 2016 to 2017.
Exactly.
The current increase right now went in 2019, it had gone all the way up to 3,020. You know when the figures went down, David? It went down in 2020 to 2,041. And you know, according to our acting commissioner of police, he is stating that, and it's ironic that he is stating this. He's saying that the period that we were in lockdown, that criminality dipped because of the coronavirus and the effects of isolation and the fact that persons couldn't be moving about. I don't think that will go down very good with the ex-commissioner Gary Griffith, because he was the man, as I quoted earlier, when it is, he was quoting stats and saying that the numbers dwindled, that it had nothing to do with the coronavirus. He was saying, in fact, internationally criminality increased during the COVID period, but Frantz was able to get the data down. You know what ironically hits me is that when we have, I don't like when persons who once held office or who held office for a period of time, when they demit office, they actually come and they put information into the space as to, well, I did this then, and now it is being done differently. And as a result of the good work that I did, things have changed. I don't think it adds confidence. My confidence in the acting commissioner of police, if it is I were to listen to the former commissioner, would dwindle. Now I'm telling myself, well, if it is I were to listen to the former commissioner, one may even wonder whether we will question the competency and the leadership of the current of the TTPS as it stands today.
Yes.
I don't think it's healthy for the population out there to be feeding on such a narrative. If it's one thing I must say, and I in my mind, I was able to appreciate Stephen Williams, the former commissioner who preceded Mr. Griffith. He never entered the public space and made any public comment criticizing the commissioner as existed in terms of Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
He stayed very quiet, and sometimes you let the cream rise to the surface. You allow the dust to settle, and you allow if you stay quiet, the truth always comes out. In this instance, Mr. Griffith was able to benefit from a 2-year period. The 2 of the 3 years that he held office, he had the benefit of a coronavirus pandemic to supplement his activity. He wanted to peddle the narrative that it's policies he put in place that brought the criminality down. I am not saying, no, I'm not a criminologist, a statistician. I'm not working out at the CSO. I don't have the sort of data that the TTPS would have in terms of criminality and reported crime. But one has to wonder, if it is we were to take the current acting commissioner of police information, he is saying that there's a general geometric increase in criminality over the years, and that the period March 2020 to current time has, or let's say just before the beginning of this year, gave us a misunderstanding of how serious crime was. In other words, the trajectories were always onerous. I was just quoting the robberies, right? Let me quote some of the stats as it relates to vehicles.
Yeah.
I just said that we had a total of 700 plus stolen vehicles for the year 2022 between January and July. Yeah. If we were to look at the data from previous years, in 2014, in terms of larceny of vehicles, there were 742 in 2014. This is the entire year. So I want you to marry this. If it is we are 700 plus in 2018 in the first 6 months, in 2014 for the entire year it was 742.
Imagine that.
In 2015 for the entire year it was 785. And right now we are already crossed 700 plus in 2022 for the first 6 months.
Gotcha.
In 2020, the entire of 2020, there were 539 stolen vehicles. We are looking at, for the listening public, we're already looking at 700 plus in the first 6 months.
I tell you.
So, Richard, when we look at these statistics, we're just looking at the general data in terms of criminality. I didn't want to just look at what happened in 2022. David and I were examining the data as it relates to criminality through the years, the numbers, the fluorescence, the exponential increases. We were comparing that so far in the year, in the first 6 months of this year. We've had over 700 vehicles stolen in Trinidad and Tobago. 700 plus motor vehicles stolen between January and July of 2022. When it is we look at the statistics in the previous years, in 2018, for the entire year 2018, we had 575, Richard, vehicles stolen. In 2019, it was 678 for the entire year, January to December. We are looking at in between January and July of 2022. We've already crossed the 700 figure. So the criminality that we're living with and the criminality that the population is subjected to on a day-to-day basis now, we can't blame and say that the problem, it's a today problem. We're looking at data taking us back 8 years, as far back as 2014, because the statistics I'm quoting here is the official TTPS releases. And we're looking at, in 2014, you had 742 motor vehicles stolen for the entire year. And when we compare that data to the first 6 months of 2022, we're looking at 700 plus already. And that's just vehicles we're talking about. When you look at larceny of dwelling houses, the official TTPS figure is there were 289 reported cases of larceny of dwelling houses in 2014. By the year 2020, it had gone to 159, but that decrease, according to our acting commissioner, was a direct result of the lockdown and the coronavirus situation. And you know what is ironic, Richard? Our acting commissioner is also stating that the statistics were lower in 2011 because of our state of emergency. So I don't know if it is he's quietly and insidiously insinuating and putting into the public space that maybe what we may need, as was done in Jamaica within this year itself, some sort of state of emergency being declared. It was done in Costa Rica recently. So if it is we were to buy into the fact that criminality is on the rise regionally, the other regions are engaging in some sort of, if not in our case amnesty, some sort of lockdown, some sort of state of emergency or some version of it that requires getting into those areas that we have data that the criminality is taking place in, and engaging the known suspects or the persons of interest, or engaging the gang leaders. I'm looking at the data, and the data isn't promising. It's not promising at all. If it is we were to look at the sexual offenses, serious indecency, in 2014, we had 80 reported cases of serious indecency. In 2015, it was 70. In 2016, it was 32. By 2019, it was 24. Well, you know, the COVID period again, acts of serious indecency decreased. So it seemed that COVID was the best antidote to increases in violence, criminality, wrongdoing. Maybe I don't want to say it was a blessing in disguise, because that's a disrespect to the 3,000 people that lost their lives. Yeah. But I'm stating that I have no confidence in the TTPS in addressing issues of criminality and leaving the fears that I carry. I don't know how the public may feel about that. I'm saying that the data that they're providing, the data doesn't assist. Let me quote something else. Violent crimes in 2014, David and Richard. There were 4,641 violent crimes reported in 2014. According to the TTPS statistics, in 2015, it was 4,294. In 2016, 4,217. Reported cases of violence we're talking about, violent crimes, not just crime, but violent ones. Yeah. In 2018, 5,425. In 2019, 5,224 reported cases of violent crime. Of course, in 2020, coronavirus, the statistics came down to 3,606. Even in the midst of COVID and the effects of the coronavirus, imagine we had 3,606 reported cases of violent crimes. Right now, statistically, doing the comparison over the last 8 years, over different commissioners of police, we've had figures that are staggering in terms of levels of criminality. And you're telling me now we only now having an interministerial approach. We only now bring a holistic approach involving ministries of sport, culture, health, the THA. Only now we've decided to embark on such an exercise when for 8 years the population of this country have been suffering. We've had information provided by this very acting commissioner. There is an 18% detection rate in relation to criminality. So clearly the methodologies that we've been adopted with all the investment that Mr. Hines has been saying that the government has invested. I'm not denying that the money has been invested. The money has been invested in spyware, but the money, they have not been able to provide the data. And the SSA reports were between 2017 and 2021 were never made public. Those SSA reports that were supposed to be filed in cabinet and brought to the parliament. The 2021 SSA report came to cabinet when they were seeking to have the legislation amended. So they brought the statistics and brought the data, and they spoke as it relates to the data. But for 5 years before that, there was no report filed in parliament. So we don't know whether the money invested by way of the SSA spyware, whether that reaped the returns that was worth the investment, meaning that the expected yield was worth the present loss or the present cost.
Yeah.
So we're talking, Richard and David, we're talking an approach to crime, we're talking the blueprint, interministerial approaches, synergy between the business sector and the community, devising policy based on data, based on information. But all of this is just seems to me, and I'm open to correction, it just seems to be plenty academic talk, plenty blueprint, plenty plans, grand plans, pies in the sky, and nothing being, we're not seeing the results. There's no direct coefficient that points to, so we did A and we got this. We implemented this policy and this was the result. All we're seeing is this increases upon increases upon increases. How do you feel about that, Richard, in terms of where do you see 6 months from now? At the end of the year, do you think that we have any hope that we will be looking at something different?
No furries. Because I would have to point you to the basis that so inform me that we should expect something differently or encouraging. There's no data that I could direct your attention to that could assist us to believe that we should expect something differently. So what the data is saying to me, instead, or on the contrary, is that we're going to have more of what we're experiencing now, or it may actually get worse, because we have data that would aid us to make such a conclusion, to extrapolate from it, to express it here as a projected position for the future, so that it looks as though from what we have in the context of data and the history, it seems as though we're heading in the wrong direction. We have no data that would inform us that we should expect something differently going forward. So there's nothing more I could say.
I don't want to send that signal out to our listening public that we're living in times that there's little hope. I want to encourage the citizens out there to.
You have data that would assist you to encourage them.
But we have to leave the public with some sort of hope. We have to.
No, but we have no. But if we have to direct them to hold on to hope, we have to let them know what the situation really is, so they know what they're up against.
That's
so
right.
If they have to hope, they know what they're hoping to get out of. But if you try to make them feel by some stretch of imagination, or just by hoping the terrible situation isn't going to be as terrible as it is now in the future, that's not helping them, because what we're doing now, we're causing them to kind of drop their guard, which could allow them to become victims in the future. It's better if we tell them the truth so that they could become more vigilant and be more aware of their surroundings, so that they can take better decisions, at least based on suspicion, to protect themselves and their families.
I agree. David, just some guidance. I gather that we're closing off at 6.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, well, maybe we could end on playing one of those song bites from the commissioner.
Well, they are very short. I can run through the 6 of them.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Richard, I think we've covered the information, we've covered the data. I hope that the population out there could continue to have some sort of faith and confidence that we could things would improve. We could only trust that the blueprint our Prime Minister has spoken of, that blueprint exists, and the synergy between the population and the business sector and the community that arose out of the town meetings in Port of Spain could be translated into other communities. And let's hope for the best. It's sad to say that is speaking.
Fareed, when people lose trust and confidence in a government and in a prime minister, when they come and tell you they have blueprint, you don't believe that?
It probably
if they had a blueprint, Fareed, ask them when they got the blueprint. when they came to have that blueprint in their possession.
Tell you how long it took them to put that together.
Yeah, how long it took them to put together, how long they have it in their possession. If they had it all the time, why did they use it? Why did they use it if they believe it can help people? And if you just got it, who did it? And where you got it from? You believe they have blueprint? I want to tell you, for me to believe they have a blueprint, is not to come and wave a piece of paper far away from journalists and so let's see there. Oh, let's see there. That don't mean it there. We know those games. Yeah. No, we know those games. Here's what I had to see. I had to see they take the paper and put it on the desk and tell the journalists, look at there. And let them take their camera and record it and photocopy it. So when they go back to the media houses, they could dissect it and then share with the nation if there's really a blueprint or if it's something resembling a blueprint. Outside of that, that's what happened. They may be talking the truth about the blueprint, Fareed. They might be talking the truth, but I do not believe them.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, the clips before we go to the news.
Yeah.
In fact, I know persons will be concerned with the numbers. At this time, we have 364 murders reported for the year so far. We recognized a new trend that in order to carry out the high level of reprisal from one gang to the other, they started to target each other in what we call neutral spaces throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Some of the neutral places are in fact high public places as it relates to areas of nightclubs and even some instances at sporting venues. In relation to these high crime areas or zones of special concern, in an effort to remedy the situation, other than holding down these zones with the support of the Defense Force, we decided that it is necessary to bring out 60 police officers from our vacation leave, especially to assist in the open spaces and the public spaces I spoke about, which will enhance our new approach to doing patrols, both foot and mobile, by creating the patrol grids and increasing our presence in the various spaces. Because it's not just presence, but active presence out there, where the officers will be engaging in a lot of stop and searches, roadblocks, and other policing activities. So we are asking you to bear with us as we deal with this challenging situation in Trinidad and Tobago. We want to give you the assurance, together with our partners, the Defense Force, who is supporting us, boots by boots, side by side, we will in fact deal with this scourge that is taking place. We have doubled up the manner in which officers are working in 5 police divisions. These divisions are the Western Division, Port of Spain Division, our Northeastern Division, Central Division, and Southern Division. Meaning to say, and I had given an example earlier this week. In most places, we have officers who will work 8 to 6, 6 to 8, that is 2 days, basically, and off for 2 days. They are now required to work 24/48. The task forces that worked 24/48 are now required to work 24/24.
You need to assist your police service in protecting you. And therefore, if you see something, you know something, you should assist yourself. The life you save may just be your own. That is my message. If we gang up, if all of us law-abiding people who don't want these murders and don't want this mayhem, if we gang up against the criminal gangs, they cannot beat us. That's why we are working to further professionalize the police service, to make them more professionals than Trinidadians, because Trinidadians tend to be very loose on the lip. I am no doubt some police officers might just in a bar with their friends or around a dinner table say things they ought not to say and create all kinds of issues. And not only police officers, people everywhere, including parliamentarians and all. That's how it, So we want to further professionalize them. We want to improve the laws and the regulations that govern and surround their activities. And of course, hopefully we will build a platform of confidence yet again.